Okay, guys, we got a treat for you today. We're going to flow the GT40X. Pretty much done. I think that's the way they're going to be. This is actually the other head. It is cylinder number 4. And we're going to test 2 intakes on it. This is the blueprint Edelbrock Rpm Airgap copy. On top, we've got a 650 QFT annular discharge carb. Really nice looking piece. And let's get to it. Okay, an important point to make whenever I test manifolds, right? Everything else is taped off except the port we're going to use. And all the other ports on the other side of the intake manifold have to be sealed as well. So you're only drawing through one port. Now, I'm just putting this back together because I want to give it a shot of Dykem in its finalized state. But we had a question on what the flow ball is doing, okay? And what the flow ball is doing is, if we're flowing and it's already past separation point on your short side, and you put a flow ball on the floor, such as something like this, that causes turbulence, and sometimes it can reattach to the short side, and you can see what your flow could be if you could stick to the short side. So I'm going to do a 2-second demo on this before we look at those intakes flowing through this port. Okay, you can see we can get quite a big jump if we can get the air to stick to that short side a little bit more. Now, there's a couple things about the short side I'm not thrilled with. One, it's very low. 2, the speeds are not bad where they are. Could I make them better? If I'd like to push the casting, I probably could. This is a street ride. I don't want to make anything thin. Could I probably do better than it is right now? Well, right now we're at 0.6-inch lift, which is probably more than this engine's going to run out on a street engine. And if I do any more work to the short side, i.e. lay it back, make it wider, things like that, or change the angle of the roof, the floor, I'll probably lose mid-range at this point. So we'll take a quick look at that. If I remember, I have the flow numbers of the GT40X, that DV tested on the 306 when I did my my E7s. And we can compare them. I know he knocked the short side way back. I even have a picture of the chamber after it burned. Kind of interesting. If I forget about it, I'll have to make another video because it's good stuff. Okay, now this has pretty much been finalized, i.e. meaning I went through all of them and I made all the bowls and so forth as close to the same size as I possibly can. You can see by the blue, we've got nice blue action on the chamber. We got a couple speckles on the other side of the plug. We look real good in the bowl. You got a nice powder on the valve. See just a hair on the other side of the valve. You can see how far back in the port the blue starts hitting that wall because the port is turned to the right. Okay, small block Ford, that's the way it does it. Okay, we'll take a look at the third cut on the same port, number 4, versus the fourth cut on the 4th. The other flows, I put it as 1. I do mix up my Ford and my Chevy firing orders sometimes. So they were all this was my original port that I did my development on. So I'm going to finish it up on that port and do all the testing on the intake on that port. So that's going to be our fourth cut. How did we do? Well, by the time I equalized all the bowls and everything, we got pluses everywhere, but she starts the transition a little bit earlier. Now, that didn't bother me too much because I know we're going to choke it down with a dual plane and a smaller carb. Now, if you think that's a mistake, you correct me in the comments, and maybe we can learn something from it. Let me see if I can find the flows to DVs. I'll put them in here. Now, I mean, as it is right now, at 0.6, which is higher than this will go, we go 238, which is a little bit better than it did last time, right? Notice here at 5, we had a pulsation. Pulsation's bad. Okay, we didn't have that here. And we put a flow ball on here, and we got 252 approximately. I think it just did better than that on the bench when we did it, the demo. I think it went 255. In any case, not bad. Let me see if I can find those flow numbers from DV. Okay, that may be hard to see with the reflection of the lights, but that's a picture that DV posted. Actually, I think it maybe Andy posted it on Speed Talk. They did a thread on these heads, and that was their last flows. I'm going to take those numbers and convert them. Okay, hopefully you guys can see it. This is how they convert. All right, these are DVs. Let me just write DV here. Okay. I got him beat all the way to here. See, I know he knocked that short side way back at this point. And he's got smoother flows. Where I break into transition, he's got smoother flows. But what happens is he dropped a lot here. I mean, we've got big differences between these three. I'm not sure which one would make better power, especially on a street application. Let's do the same with the exhaust port, see how we did. Okay, let's take a quick look at that. I converted it to the DV column there. Let's see how we did against that. Okay, it really doesn't surprise me because I'm using a stock valve job. DV, I know, does a custom valve job. So he likes his low lift flow. Yep, he beat me on all the low lift flows. And after that, I start winning. Now, I have a little noise here. I don't know whether he has noise or not, but I've got some good gains on him in the mid to upper ranges, okay? And we top out pretty good, 180. I'm trying not to make that exhaust port too big. So that's what we've got. In any case, with these flows, DV made, now I know my E7s went 361 horsepower. They were that's on a 306 with a hydraulic flat tappet cam. It's only 206. Duration at 50, 0.478 lift. And these heads were down a few horsepower, but they actually made more low-end torque. I don't know if I have those sheets on my other phone that I can show you guys. Okay, I can see this video is going to be running along already. Take a quick look at the finalized swirl versus third cut swirl. We got minus, minus, plus, plus, minus, plus, 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 minus. It's fine. Either way is fine. Okay, as far as the exhaust, the only difference was I did polish the short side in a little more detail. And these are all hit and miss. A few CFM. This one topped out at 185 at 0.45. Okay, and we did a tiny bit better on our exhaust with the pipe. Still 180, 202. Not bad for a relatively small exhaust port. Okay, take a look at third cut intake airspeeds versus fourth cut intake airspeeds. Now remember, all I did is equalize the bowls, make sure the roofs were the same size, things like that. Equals, tiny bit plus, minus, minus, very close though from what they were. I did raise one roof more to even this number up. Okay, see if you can figure out what I did there. And as far as our short side, we got plus, 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 right? The short side is more efficient at this point, but it's starting to get a little on the fast side. Now, that's all tested at 0.6 inch. It's already in transition. Okay, and at the exhaust, that's our third cut, exhaust air speeds, fourth cut exhaust air speeds, plus, minus, plus, plus, minus, plus, 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 plus. They look better, but yet they flow almost identical. This has got a little more attention to the short side radius polish. Okay, brand new out of the box, Edelbrock Rpm Airgap. That little tag means a lot to me. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this, and we're going to look at the blueprint copy and see if, I hate to say it this way, see if that little tag is worth the higher price of the Edelbrock. I always liked Edelbrock stuff. I can't say I didn't. And the casting is in nice shape. It's a 7521. Okay, it's a high rise. It's got nice shaped runners. Okay, the plenum is nice. It's notched, but it's not notched very much. It's only about 1/4 of an inch notched. It's got the nice ribs in the plenum. Okay, the plenum does kick out. It should kick out. And I will say that your transition on the bottom plenum to go into the runner is a little small. I probably would have made them a little bigger. But as I always say, the bottom, they probably did that on purpose because the bottom plenum usually flows better than the top plenum. So when we did testing on this, we used cylinder head number 4. So our first test is going to be out of this runner, which is an upper H, which we would expect to be a little bit lower when I flip the intake manifold and flow it through this one at the lower. Okay, so that is number 5. So we're going to compare 4 to 5. Overall, nice looking piece. Let's take a look at the bottom. Okay, I got a one-handed. Now this gasket, 1262S3, this fits the cylinder heads almost perfect. I didn't change the opening on the cylinder heads. So the cylinder heads are about that big, and the intake manifold's quite a bit smaller. Now, is that a detriment? Depends who you talk to, right? That gives you a nice anti-reversion edge. May not be a bad thing on a street engine. Now, can we take this and open it up and get some more flow? Well, you might, and you might not do anything. It's one of the things, the customer has to decide if it's worth spending the money, or are we already there for what he wants to accomplish. Okay, we measured the openings. They are almost identical to the thousandth of between the blueprint and the Edelbrock. Okay, the Edelbrock's got a little bit different finish on the bottom, but it looks like it's all machined very nicely. Okay, I got some scribbles on here so you can see. Okay, number 4, which is this runner, right? Upper H, right? I wrote up here, upper H. Okay, and it's going against our 4th cut number. So this is what you're going to get. Obviously, you're going to lose because it's on an intake manifold. Now, like I said, most dual planes only flow about 220. Now, you're putting it also through a carb and a cylinder head. So if you take a look, if we're running right in this area, we have over 200 CFM flow. Should be more than 400 horsepower right there, okay? That is with a completely untouched Edelbrock and a 650 annular discharge carb. Okay, this is what happens to our swirl. This is where we were. This is what it is. Notice how much it changes. It's actually a bit low. Now, this head is designed for adding swirl. Now, I wasn't able to test this head completely stock with the intake manifold. Intake manifolds just came in. But it's kind of interesting, right? We don't have to worry about too much swirl at this point. We're actually a hair lower than I'd like, but I think it'll work fine. Now, let's take the intake and just turn it around. Okay, so now we're going to be in the deeper plenum. This plenum does have some anomalies in it. It has got a big ridge here. It's got a ridge all around it. The blueprint does not have that. Okay, so we're coming down and we're flowing through this runner. Now, remember what I said about the deeper plenum, right? I usually found that it flows a little bit better. Let's see. Okay, I think we're going to leave this set up like this so you can see what the cylinder head did. You can see what the upper H did, and this is the lower H. Okay, the lower H, overall they did a great job keeping it almost equal, but you can see the taller plenum makes a little bit of a difference at the top end. It's also got a little bit better swirl curve. Okay, it's a different port. It comes in at a different angle, right? This is a low entrance into the port, whereas this one is a relatively high entrance into the port. It does make a difference. Overall, the guys that designed this did a pretty good job, okay? That's probably the most even I've seen upper H to lower H. So good job on that. All right, before we take the Edelbrock and take it off the bench, let's just take a couple looks and see what we can see. All right, it's a nice looking piece. It's got nice curves. Let's see how the blueprint did. Okay, the blueprint, we measured a bunch of stuff. It's almost identical everywhere. The upper plenum doesn't have that ridge that the Edelbrock had. And as soon as I looked at it, I thought, well, due to that ridge, I think it's going to lose a couple CFM, maybe 3 CFM over the Edelbrock will lose due to that. See if I was right. Good looking piece. The machining looks really nice on it. Okay. The notch is almost identical. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they both were manufactured in the same place. They just have a little bit different finish to them. How we're going to do this, I think we're going to leave all 3 sheets up. Okay, you can see what the cylinder head did, what the upper H did on the Edelbrock, and this is the upper H on our blueprint. How did we do? Can't really get closer than that, guys. Really can't. Even the swirl progression is very close. Okay? Extremely close. Okay, these I put X's through them. I put it on. I did a flow test. I forgot to tape the other runners. So you can get an idea of how much things go up if you don't seal them off. Notice we go up to 228 here, which is considerably better than this port did when it was all taped up. Okay, so this is number 5, which is the lower runner, and we can compare it to the Edelbrock. This is the Edelbrock. This is the blueprint. The blueprint is a little bit better everywhere, probably due to that anomaly in the plenum. Now I figured it would be 3 CFM. It looks a little better than that. You know, it's 9. It's up 9 CFM. Interesting, right? I think so. Let's take a good look at this blueprint, and we're going to take a look at them right next to each other, and then I'm going to sign this this video off. Okay, nice inside the plenum. Very much almost identical curves. Right? You can tell by the way it performs, it's almost identical. Okay, the machining finish is really nice. The bottom's a little bit different. Okay. Does it have a number on it? It's got a number on it. Let's see if you guys can see that. Reversion A. Revision A, I should say. Okay, right next to each other. Now, the Edelbrock is a little bit shinier finish. It's a little bit rougher finish. Then the Blueprint, a little duller finish, a little bit finer as far as casting sand. Or is that my imagination? Now, I don't know if Edelbrock coats these with something. They may coat them with something to keep it shiny. I don't know. All right, this is a little more difficult to see, but our paste to ooze line on the Edelbrock, take a look at how it looks. It's not bad. It's actually quite a clean casting. And the Blueprint has actually got a little bit smaller paste to ooze line. It looks even a little better, believe it or not. Interesting stuff to compare two different things. Now, like I said, I don't know who. I mean, look at the plenum on the side, right? The way it's notched out there, and the way it's notched out there. To me, they're so close. They may come from the same place. I don't know. I'm sure somebody knows. Now, the big question is it worth it for the customer to spend some money and have me work over whichever one of these he wants me to work over? Or better off running them the way they are. You got 400 plus streetable horsepower right now without me doing anything else to the heads and bolting on a completely stock intake manifold. The project, as it sits now, he doesn't know how many cubes he's going. It's between 306 to a 363. He's kind of looking at 347 crate engines right now by a lower end. And he's undecided about that. It's going to have a 5-speed. He's got the 8.8. I saw it in the truck last night. He's thinking of going with a 355 gear because if he goes steeper than that, he does have experience with Fox bodies. He knows 373, 411, first gear becomes kind of useless. It does nothing but cooks the tires. That becomes different if you're going to slicks and you're drag racing, but this is going to be a strictly warm street application. So I'm looking forward to what you guys have to say about this. And if we need to do any more work to the head, or we're going to let it cook the way it is. Let me give you one more look at that carb from the top, because it's a cool looking carb. Okay, for testing, I loosened up our choke and made it so it stands vertical, so we have less air restriction. Really a nice looking piece, nice looking curves, nice big annular discharge boosters. And it's only a 650, so if you put it on a 306, it's not a problem. I used to run a carb that big in the 90s on a 306 with annular discharge. Super responsive. Okay? So if he goes more cubes, gives it a better tug on it, it'll work really well. It'll even get decent mileage just cruising around, which is a plus. Okay? All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out, almost 24 minutes. Have a good night.